Hello, everyone. My name is Gus.
Hi, I'm Woody.
And I made the mistake of telling you we're reacting to a video about NASA. So why are you wearing those ridiculous glasses?
Do you understand how much expertise I have with NASA and the alignment of planets and a solar eclipse?
Okay.
I'm in the spirit of NASA.
Okay.
What if right now they were off a little bit and all of a sudden on my phone starts beeping, beep, 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 and that's really when the eclipse is. I'm ready and you're not.
Your brain is always off a little bit.
Okay, well,
let's
this is why I wear these. Anyway, this is perfect for the spirit of, I don't know what we're talking about, honestly, in general.
I haven't seen the whole video, but this was a recommendation that somebody sent to us. They said that there's a channel that I watch a lot, Smarter Every Day, it's called. I've seen a lot of their videos. There was one they did about a submarine in the Arctic, which was amazing. But anyway, this video, this guy went to the Natural Buoyancy Laboratory at NASA, which is epic. And he went scuba diving in there, and he talks about scuba, and they were like, hey, can you guys watch the video, react to it, corroborate the information, yes or no, is it accurate or not? Let's talk about that. And then, they just want to hear our thoughts.
How did he get in? Does he talk about that?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I'd like to.
Let's see.
As we move towards this big decision that NASA has to make, we have to understand some of the prerequisite information, and coincidentally, a lot of the physics has to do with scuba diving. This gets complicated, so obviously we should use a flannel graph. So the air we generally breathe is made up of several gases. You get about 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, with a tiny bit of argon, CO2, and some trace gases.
Okay.
When you dive in a swimming pool, the further down you go, the higher the water pressure becomes, and that has some implications. When the scuba diver breathes air from the tank, that air has to be compressed to the pressure of the depth that the diver is at. That means that the deeper you go, the more nitrogen enters your bloodstream. It's like absorbed in your body, in your blood, nerves, cells, basically all your tissues.
Boyle's
if you
Law.
then return to the surface, all that nitrogen has to work its way back out of your body, so it tries to get out of your tissues. Now, you've heard of this. It's called the bends. You've heard of divers getting the bends if they surface too quickly, right? So divers are always working to stay on the correct side of the math so that they don't stay down too long and get too much nitrogen in their blood, and they don't ascend to the surface too quickly so that that nitrogen tries to rupture out of their body really quickly, causing the bends.
All right, so let's talk about a second here, because when I hear somebody talking about ascending too quickly, all right, that to me as a diver has two implications. One is your rate of ascent, how fast you go up. And the second one is how quick or how soon do you go up during the dive, okay? So I think when he's talking about ascending too quick, he's talking about time, which means staying under the no decompression limits. So ascending quick enough. But because if you go beyond, let me back up. All right,
I think what
hold
he's...
on, let me finish my thought.
Finish your thought, and I'll tell you what I think
go.
he's saying, and I want to clarify what he's saying.
So when you're a diver, and this is for those of you who are not divers, when you're a recreational diver, we follow basically a rule of a no decompression limit dive, which means that as long as you are within those time limits, you can go to the surface and you, in theory, should not be bent, should not have decompression sickness. That's basically what it is. So one example is you can stay, at 60 feet or 20 meters for 60 minutes. Let's just keep it simple, okay? And if you're within those 60 minutes, you can go to the surface and you shouldn't be getting bent. Straight. Now, we do a safety stop and all this stuff, but that's just going too far. What he's talking about is if you don't go up too fast, if you pass that time, if you go beyond the no decompression limit, meaning into decompression, it doesn't matter how slow you go to the surface, you can still be bent because you have too much nitrogen in your body. So if you stay for 3 hours at 60 feet, you can go a feet a minute. Like, depending on your decompression schedule, you can still get bent. So regardless of the speed, that's not just the factor for you to get bent. It's also how much time do you spend underwater and at what depth.
Yeah, but the speed that you go up absolutely affects how fast those bubbles are coming out of solution, and we all bubble and going through your body. The question is how many bubbles, the quantity, the amount, can we handle
Right.
before it's too much for our body to appropriately off-gas those, get them through the lungs, breathe them out, get it out of your body. That is affected by the speed that you go up, because as you're going up, you're expanding the bubbles, right? The pressure's decreasing. It's Boyle's law.
Right.
So that speed matters. And some people, some books, some agencies are like, don't go up faster than your bubble. Some say don't go up faster than 60 feet a minute. Most now are saying 30 feet a minute.
10 meters per minute.
So we keep that expansion at a level that most people should be able to handle before you're bent, before the bubbles are too much and start affecting your joints and your muscles and all the other symptoms of being bent.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
But what I'm
And
saying
that's
is,
right.
what I'm saying is the rate of ascent is also connected to the time you spend underwater. Case in point, fully saturated divers. They spend a week underwater working. You go up 30 feet per minute, you'll die.
I think you just explode. I don't know.
They will die.
All
right?
16 tissue
Right.
compartments are saturated at that
Right.
point.
So the rate of ascent is connected to the type of diving that you just did. All right.
Scuba divers are always thinking about how much bottom time they have. If I go down, the nitrogen will get in my blood, and then I have to be very slow on my way up. In fact, I have to do what's called a safety stop. I'll come up to a certain depth and let that nitrogen work its way out of my body. I'm going to watch the time, make sure that nitrogen gets to dissipate out. It's a very important part of scuba diving. People that dive all the time, they have this cheat code that lets them stay down longer. They have more bottom time. It's called EAN, or enriched air nitrox. And this basically is air, but they played with the percentages of oxygen versus nitrogen. You'll hear of nitrox 32, nitrox 36. That's 32% oxygen, or 36% oxygen instead of the normal 21% oxygen. It's a really interesting way to offset the nitrogen buildup in your blood. Now, at the NBL, they go even farther. They don't use normal nitrox that a professional diver would use. They use nitrox that's got even more oxygen in it. And the reason they do this is because the NBL is a pool that's only 40 foot deep, right?
Awesome.
So they've done all the math ahead of time, and they realize if we have this special nitrox that we dive in here with the pool, people can have all the bottom time they want, and then they can come back up at any time, and they don't have to worry about the bends. Long story short, the people at the Nitro Buoyancy Lab,
you have to
extremely
worry
You do have to worry
smart.
about the bends.
They developed this special nitrox blend so that people can dive for an extremely long period of time and come up safely, and they never have to worry about decompression sickness.
Yeah,
on
can
the
you
way
pause it
out
for
of
one
the
second? I don't
pool.
have the. So if we ran, I think he said it's a 40-foot dive
Right.
on 46% oxygen and we took ID GoPro. We have these calculators online where we can calculate our no decompression limit.
Right.
It's got to be a very, very long time.
Right.
But it's not no possibility. That's what he said. Just keep that in mind. There is a possibility of getting bent in every single dive you do for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect science, but
Well, not just that, not just the chance of getting bent, but then you start thinking about CNS stuff, like central nervous system stuff.
definitely.
Too much. There's a thing that is called too much oxygen. If you have too much oxygen for too long, there's other problems that come with that.
Pulmonary effects, right? Your lungs start to burn out.
Right.
So I don't know what it is. I don't have time to run it. But if you, everybody out there that are divers, if you want to run a 40-foot dive at 46% oxygen, your no decompression limit
Yeah.
is probably
I mean, at 40 feet, it could be higher than 50%.
long time.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, let's see if
the
they
reason
explain
and the
it,
reason that you have to also watch what percent of oxygen you use is most of us we don't want to exceed a 1.4 partial pressure. If you start going above that, there are risks on an immediate problem, which is basically that you'll convulse underwater. Where that is above 1.4, we don't know. It could be different for different people, right?
Right.
1.6 is the outer limit. 1.4 is when we start worrying about it. So you have to do the math to determine what percent of oxygen can we have at any particular depth so that we don't exceed an outer limit partial pressure of 1.6.
And what
So we
Woody's
don't
talking
convulse.
about, by the way, what Woody's talking about is when you're breathing 100% oxygen on the surface, your partial pressure of oxygen is 1. 100, right? 100% is 1. Now, as he explained on the video, when you go deeper, the pressure of the water forces more molecules of whatever it is, in this case oxygen, into your bloodstream. And when you keep going down, now you go from 1, which is 100% oxygen at the surface, you start increasing that PO2
There's his
as
1.
you go down.
He made it 1. So
The 46%.
the 46% at
higher.
40 feet
Yeah, I
is
think
a
they go higher.
partial pressure of 1.0. Now, they may, at NASA, and many rebreather classes tell you don't make it so that your diluent can get you down to 1. They maybe want to be so conservative that they don't want any of their divers to have more than a 1.0 partial pressure. It's 1.017, whatever.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you keep going down, that PO2, that partial pressure goes up. So one example is 100% oxygen at 20 feet is 1.6, which is what you were talking about. Is that outer limit? So if you go deeper than that and that number keeps creeping up, then you can have a convulsion and die. That's what we were talking about. So 100.
So they're really safe at 46% at 40 feet. They're at 1. They're way below these limits that we're talking about.
The depth underwater matters, and this is what we teach on the Nitrox class: is can you breathe 100% oxygen? You can't really answer that yes or no, because you need to know the depth. Can you breathe 100% oxygen at 100 feet deep? You will die.
But to your point,
Yeah.
how long can they breathe that 46%? That's different than the convulsion issue. That's the long-term pulmonary effect issue. There's a single dive limit and a multi-dive limit. So there's a lot.
Let's
this
see what
is
they
pretty
say.
technical, but he asked us to do this.
Yeah,
right?
let's
so,
do it.
Fascinating. My understanding is we dive with nitrox here, but it's a special kind of nitrox?
It is. It's a much higher mix than you can get out recreationally or industrially, because it's set up for the profile. So that astronaut in that pressurized suit that right now is about 4 psi over ambient. So at the bottom, it's going to be the bottom pressure plus 4 in for 6 hours. Well, I would be in decompression cycle at that point. If I was on an air dive for 6 hours at 48 feet equivalent, I'd be in decompression.
Yeah.
I
For
can't
6
do
hours?
48 feet
higher
equivalent
oxygen,
because
less
of the
nitrogen.
PSI in
But
the
if I
suit.
get too much oxygen, it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
So I can't, like on orbit, the real one is a oxygen rebreather. There's no nitrogen in the system for the on-orbit suit.
When you're
But
in
I can't do
space,
that in the water because you'll
100%
be toxic. So we have this blend of 46%. So it splits that difference there. So we
46.
can do that safely.
My brain was on fire. Clearly, Dom has a lot of experience and he knows a lot of things, but I finally gained enough self-discipline to quit asking questions so that we could move on to the dive preparation part of the meeting.
See, each subject has 4 divers on them. They have 2 safeties, 1 utility, and 1 float. So you have 8 divers, 2 subjects in the water.
Okay. 8 divers, 2 subjects in the water. Is it 4 people
Per subject.
That's
Are
pretty
those
cool.
divers up on comms, audible comms?
Now, as you do, we hear them in the water because we have speakers. You'll hear this tomorrow. It's really cool. We hear everything the subject's saying and everything the TC and the TD are saying in the water.
Wow.
They can't hear us. It's a one-way. But we hear everything that's going on. So they can make requests to us. They can talk to us. We can hear things so we can prepare what we're going to do next. So yeah, you'll hear that. It's very clear. And it's one of the rules we have about speakers. You can stay about 3 feet away from them because they are very loud.
So I wanted to mention, because this is interesting for people that are watching this that are curious about stuff, the way sound works on the water. It actually works better than in the air. It's unbelievable.
It has the water's denser, so it has more. The
Things
sound
to
waves
bounce.
can bounce off more. The problem though is directional. It's bouncing all over this density. So you're like, I think it's coming from above me and behind me, and it's like right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's just bouncing. Imagine the
It's
sound
hard.
waves.
It's hard. Well,
you can't tell where it's
you've
coming
seen
from.
it, right? When we're underwater and
Yeah.
you hear a boat, you're
You're
like,
like,
"Where's
what?
that boat?"
What?
You're just
Yeah.
like looking all over the place.
Yeah,
you,
but-
you can't tell.
I mean, they can hear those whale songs from like
Miles.
20 miles away,
Yeah.
right? That thing just has the opportunity to vibrate off all those. That
So
density of the molecules.
sound travels
Water.
further
further and faster.
faster underwater, and it disorient, like you don't know.
Do you
where
remember
it-
how many times faster? Approximately
No.
4. Approximately
4
4
times faster. That's awesome. All right.
Okay.
All right. But you can hear them as if I'm talking to you right now.
Wow. As Pat went through the classroom instruction, it became clear to me that this is not a normal dive. These people are doing amazing things. There's nuances to what they do. For example, there's increased percentages of oxygen involved, so the fire hazards are different. They use a specific tank rig. The hand signals are different. All this stuff made it very clear to me that I'm not just dealing with professionals, I'm dealing with people who have been hand-selected because of their unique temperament and their skills and their ability to react under pressure. The people that dive at the NBL, they're amazing.
That's okay.
Thinking I could do that.
One of the signs of a good scuba diver is
People
the
are
ability
serious.
to control your buoyancy so that you can stay in one spot. I was having to kick and fin all over the place to keep myself where I wanted to be, whereas these divers clearly had a command of their whole body and the area around them. They didn't
guy on
have
the
to
right.
do anything. They could just float where they wanted to be.
Just standing in the
This
bottom, I
told me
don't
that
know.
they knew exactly what they were doing. The different tasks that the
Very
different
fancy.
divers had started to become more clear to
Awesome.
me. Some people were just trying to keep the umbilical out of the way of the astronauts. Others were
can do that.
safety observation. They were making sure that the astronauts were safe at all times. The camera operators were making sure that the test conductors could see exactly what was happening in the pool. It was like a beautiful choreographed dance, all happening in 3 dimensions.
Looks
And
awesome.
people were controlling their own buoyancy, and I was just trying to stay out of the way. Pat was so much better at swimming around than I was. So at one point, I gave him the camera, and I said, Pat, I want a shot of the wheels on that cart. I want to see how they're interacting with the lunar regolith. Can you go get that shot for me? And of course, he did. Look at how much the astronaut is having to lean over to push the cart. This goes back to that 1/6 G we were talking about. They're not actually getting a lot of purchase in the soil because they don't weigh as much. So they're having to lean really, really hard, and traction's an issue. Think back to that quote earlier. You're 6 times more sluggish than your weight would suggest. You can see it happening right here.
Now, could they invent like some sort of like hoverboard style cart, you know, like in Back to the Future?
Being the engineer that I am, I'll go with yes.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's 1/6 of the gravity. Like, it should be
Right.
easier to hover.
It'd be fun.
The most incredible thing I saw happen right in front of my face. Randy was working on his knees, and the transition off of his knees created a fall. And why he fell is something that you're going to recognize. Let's watch the whole thing play out first, and then we'll go back and replay it, and we'll talk about it.
Dude, I wonder how much those suits weigh, like on Earth, because obviously it's weightless in space. But so like 100 pounds of stuff, more, right?
lot.
I
Look
think
at
that thing on the back looks like weighs 100 pounds by itself.
I mean, I feel like he's struggling right now to get up, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So I guess if they fall on the moon, they need help. How are you going to get up from that thing? By yourself.
Dude, we should send I mean, not send them, but at least bring them along. Those robots from Boston Dynamics. Have you seen them? They look so scary. Like they,
Look how hard that is.
yeah.
Push up. Yo, you got it. Push.
Well, one finger push-ups must be easy in this one.
The last thing you'll need is the tongs.
He cannot get up.
Well, can you help yourself with the cart?
Collect your sample.
No,
Come on,
it's just
grab
like a
that
jump
handle,
move.
dude. See,
There
yeah,
you go.
there you go. That's smart. Yeah, look, she's. See, oh, look, they're breathing Poseidon extremes. The regulators.
Yeah, there you go, dude.
Cool.
You did it.
Use the cart.
Did you see what happened? Watch it again and let's talk about it. So Randy kind of mismanages his CG just a little bit because he's too close to the ground, and then it starts to take him over. Now, anyway, when Randy falls, watch what the diver does. She comes over and she says, "Are you okay?" And then Randy apparently tells her yes, and you have another diver getting the umbilical out of the way, and then she makes Randy struggle through on his own. He has to figure it out.
Cool.
And he does. He figures out how to get back up, and they celebrate this together, and all the while, everybody's taking the data. And I thought that was amazing.
Nice. By the way, it looks warm. They're in
It
shorties.
was
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
cool to see
Has
this
to be
at the
warm,
bottom
right?
of the pool. I was feet away from this when it was happening, and I'm excited to share this with you because
Cool.
we are getting to see an astronaut learn how to walk on the moon. Randy's
awesome.
having to figure out how to manage his CG And that's important for
Dude, you
walking
can
on
fit
the
in one
lunar
of these
surface.
suits.
And that's all going to factor
should let
in
you
if
give it a
the
shot.
Artem is successful. Right as they started testing the suits walking up a grade, the dive supervisor announced that my time was up.
Hey, Kelly, you have 5 minutes left. Start making your way to the surface.
I wanted to
this
stay on
looks
the
so
moon,
cool.
but obviously it was time to go.
Amazing.
As I swam back up, I was thinking to myself, what an amazing opportunity. I was so thankful to be able to do this.
Definitely. I would be thankful as well. I thought that was super cool and interesting. I don't think a lot of people have seen this.
Yeah,
And I wonder
amazing.
how, I've always wondered this, how similar do you think, I guess we'd have to talk to an astronaut that's been on the moon.
Right.
How similar is that to being on the moon?
I mean, I don't.
I think it's a lot different.
Big
Don't
time.
you think so?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they can only,
How many people have been to the moon? Do you know?
it's not that many, but I don't know. It's, how many astronauts have been walked on the moon, got out of the capsule?
Yeah.
Let me think.
If I had to guess, I would say like 16.
Yeah.
I think so. I
Something
don't
like
remember
that.
exactly, but it's been more than 10. 12, 14,
Hey, Siri,
16.
how many people have walked on the moon?
12 or 16?
12.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So it was more than 10. But
The last one was Gene Cernan. The first one, Neil Armstrong.
of course.
It's amazing.
Now, without looking, who was the third one? Come on. I thought you were the expert. You showed up with the glasses and everything.
The third one,
Yeah.
Shepard.
No, it was Pete Conrad. But I always use Pete Conrad as an example
How you know that? How did you know that?
because I'm about to tell you. I use Pete Conrad as an example of, I ask people teaching about the importance of being first on business and stuff.
Yes.
I always tell people, because somebody tell me there's a American hero, Pete Conrad, why is he famous for? And nobody knows. It's the third guy who walked in the moon.
Oh.
And that's why it's important to be first. But anyway, the point is, I wanted to talk about the whole 6-hour thing, because you did the calculation at 46% nitrox in this pool, even at the bottom, is 1.0.
Well, I think they now said it was 48 feet, so I need to be a little more accurate, okay? Because I didn't know it was 48. With the pressure in the suit, it's equivalent to 48. So let me do it. 48 divided by
And I'm pulling an
33
image here.
plus 1. And what is it? Is it what percent of oxygen is it?
46.
Times 0.46. So 1.13
Okay.
at 48 feet.
So I have a table right here on my phone. I carry it. I'll drop it also on the video so you guys
Is that
can
the
see it.
CNS oxygen toxicity table?
Yeah. So the CNS oxygen exposure table, we use it to calculate how high of a PO2 should we run when we dive rebreathers in a cave, because we have objectives of time. So if we say, okay, this dive is going to be 4 hours, well, I know how high can
What
my
PO2
PO2 be,
yeah.
so I don't burn my lungs with oxygen.
Right.
Okay.
But it's a balance, because if you have to go too low on that,
Right.
you're
You
increasing
have
your
more
deco
deco.
time, so you got to carry more gas.
Right. But as you can see on the table on the screen, at 1.0, you have 300 minutes. 300 minutes on a single dive and 300 minutes in a 24-hour period.
What's 1.1? Does it happen to say?
1.1 is 240.
So that's it. They
so
really
4
only had
hours.
4 hours.
Yeah, so they're saying that they're doing 6-hour dives. How? They're burning their lungs.
I mean, they're pushing it,
they're
according
pushing
to this.
it big time. So yeah, 240,
Interesting.
270 minutes. So that's
Ooh,
four.
a good question.
4.5
How are they
hours.
doing that?
Right.
I wonder
4.5
how they're
hours.
letting them push it to 6.
If we ever get invited to go to MBL, I mean, this is gonna be interesting.
We bring that.
If they think this is gonna be a 15-minute brief, forget. We're gonna be like, I'm gonna
no,
be
but
asking so many
you
questions.
know they have an answer.
Yeah, they
I
have to
bet
be
you.
doing like air brakes or something. I assume.
I don't know. Yeah, that may be. That's
Yeah.
a good. Yeah, like they do in a chamber. When you're in
Yeah.
a hyperbaric chamber, all of the sudden they'll do an air brake.
Right. And by that, what we mean by air brake is you will breathe whatever PO2 mix you have, let's say 46%, which obviously the divers I don't think are doing air brakes because they have tanks on their backs that are pre-mixed. They don't have a choice. But for the astronauts, if they're doing a 6-hour, 7-hour walk out there, so what they do is they'll feed them whatever, the 46% for like an hour or something, and then they will run just air, 21% for a while, and then back on 46 and so on. So
Cool.
I assume that's what they do, but it would be good if we could ask. So NASA, if you're watching, they probably watch our show.
Who wouldn't from NASA
Just for
watch Dive Talk
inspiration,
and Learning?
What can we pick up from these guys
I'm
that
a
we can
string
use in
theory-
the Artemis program?
Like they know I know what I know about string theory.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
that's
alone
I don't even
is-
know what that is, but let's not go into that.
One
but-
particle affects another no matter where it is in the universe. It's connected by a string. Einstein theorized it, but they've proved it recently.
All right. Sometimes we do like to review science stuff on the show, and
You do because of your PhD in nothingness.
fair enough. I thought it was in PhD in whaling, by the way.
You may have that one.
And just in case they don't understand that reference, I'm going to leave the video right here where I prove that I have a PhD in
I
whaling.
remember that.
And I prove you're wrong. You were saying some crazy stuff at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Get a good laugh. Check this out, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.